There's a few things that I do on every Mac that makes a difference, and I want to go over them with you today. Also, I think number 9 is a game changer. So let's start with Finder, specifically on the sidebar. Most of these are stuff that I don't really use, so let's get rid of them. Let's go to Settings and then Sidebar, then choose what we want to show. Personally, I don't want to see pictures, music on my Mac. Also, AirDrop isn't really needed there. I'll show you a better way later. Desktop is also moved under iCloud section when you sign into your iCloud. Then I replace them with my most used folders. And these folders are from everywhere, mostly for my unraid shared drives like YouTube projects and the Google shared drive with my post-production team. Then I changed the view to list. I have no idea how people use other than the list. It's just way easier to navigate and you get all the details you need, such as date modified, size, kind, sometimes date created if I need to double check. Okay, you know when you're deep in the folders that you get lost where you are? Well, we can go to View and then enabling the Show Path bar. It also lets you move between folders. And while we're here, we also want to enable the status bar so you know the size of the folder you're in. Now let's customize the toolbar by right-clicking and then Customize Toolbar. You can get rid of any icon that you don't use, but what you really want to do is add the AirDrop icon. That is why we got rid of the AirDrop from the sidebar earlier. All you need to do is select the file and click AirDrop. I also edit the share button by clicking it, then edit extensions, and then get rid of all this stuff I don't use. Now let's go to the search bar. This searches the entire Mac by default. We don't really want to do that most of the time, so we can change this by going to Settings and then Advanced, and under When performing a search, select Search the current folder. Alright, so you know sometimes when you open a file, like a video or an audio, and it automatically opens QuickTime or Apple Music, we can change that by specifying which app we want to use for this file type. Just right-click on the file, then Get Info, and under Open With, choose the app you want to use. Then click Press All. And now every time you open the file type, it always uses the app that you chose. So when you open Finder window or New tab, it opens the Recents folder by default. And I don't really find that very useful, to be honest. So we can go to Finder Settings, then General, and then choose which folder under New Finder window show. I go back and forth between Documents and Downloads folder. Okay, so the Recents folder is actually useful, but the native Recents folder doesn't really include any folders. And it also lists every file you've opened. And after some time, your list is going to be huge. But since the Recents folder is just a smart folder, we can actually change or create another version. So we go to File, New Smart Folder. I want it to search this Mac, then click the plus sign, and then set the last open date to within 7 days or 30 days if you like. Also, I don't want to show any apps, so I hold down the Option or Alt button, and you'll see the plus sign change to 3 dots. So press it and select none of the following are true. Choose Kind is Applications, then Save. Okay, so I don't really pay attention on the wallpapers, especially on my main monitor, which is OLED. So I basically have a black wallpaper and hide both the dock and the menu bar. But the problem with this is that I can't quickly see the date and time. But now with the new widgets, you can actually put any widgets on the desktop, which is really cool. So you can right-click on the desktop, click Edit Widgets. It'll show up the widgets menu, which has the widgets from my Mac and iPhone. And they are interactive actually. So let's start with the calendar widget and drag it on the top right. We'll also drag the time widget and you can edit the style. I'll also add the battery widget to keep track of my AirPods and my mouse's battery. Also, a quick note, I placed my widgets on my side monitor since I have triple display set up. So now let's move on to the dock. And the first thing I do is get rid of all the apps I don't use and adjust the size. Then I set it to auto hide, but Apple's default delay to show the dock takes a bit too long, especially when you're on the other monitor. So what I do is open Terminal and run this DAC auto hide script, which adjusts the time the dock shows up when you place your mouse at the bottom. I personally set it to float 0.3. Now the dock feels very snappy, even on the other monitors. So now let's move on to the MacBook's menu bar. And what I like to do is show the battery percentage. And to do that, go to System Settings, then Control Center, Battery, then turn on battery percentage. I also like to show the Wi-Fi icon. And to do that, you can click and hold Command button then drag. The other thing I like to show is the sound icon, as I keep switching from my AirPods to MacBook speakers or my DAC and Kanto speakers on my Mac Mini. And while we're on the MacBook, I go to the trackpad settings. I adjust the tracking speed because it's a bit slow. And I used to toggle the tap to click, but ever since Apple's new trackpad came out, I noticed I tend to rest my fingers on it, which triggers a click, so I reverted back to the traditional way. Now let's go to scroll and zoom. Here you can turn off natural scrolling, which makes scrolling move the direction of the scroll bar on the right. But I'm used to the natural scrolling since I look at the page to scroll. Kind of like scrolling on the iPhone and not the scroll bar. So let's go to accessibility, pointer control, and then trackpad options. This is to enable trackpad for dragging and change the dragging style to a 3-finger drag. Now I can move windows using 3 fingers. Lastly, if you are using a mouse, go to mouse settings, then advanced, and disable pointer acceleration. This makes your mouse pointer more accurate since it doesn't accelerate when you are moving or dragging. Okay, so if you have an Apple Watch, you can use it to unlock your MacBook or Mac Mini. So there are 2 ways to do this. First, if you have a MacBook, you can go to Touch ID and Password settings, then enable Apple Watch. Second is if you have a Mac Mini or Mac Pro, you go to Login Password, then enable Apple Watch. Now every time you open your MacBook or your Mac Mini while wearing your Apple Watch, it will unlock it. Okay, so I'm fine with autocorrect on my iPhone, but not on my Mac Mini. And to turn it off, we go to System Settings, then Keyboard, and edit the input sources. I like to disable all these off except double space. And there's one more thing in the display settings that I want to do. If you do a lot of work at night like me, then you definitely want to enable the night shift, which automatically makes your screen warmer at night, and to minimize blue light to make it easier to fall asleep. But if you want more control, you would want to install the Flux app, which gives you a ton more control over it. And there's a lot of these apps that they need their own video, which you can find right here or here. So I'll see you there.